Have you ever had to leave everything behind to try and live a better life? Yeah, me neither. But my great grandparents had to do this, and they made a vital sacrifice. Let me tell you about my culture and that sacrifice that they made around 100 years ago. Some background information that I'm going to tell you is found from a YouTube video about Yugoslavia and Total Slovenian News. So one side of my family is from Slovenia, which is my mom's side. And in Slovenia, there were many wars between the 15th and 19th century that never allowed the economy to grow very much, so they were very impoverished. Many cities were destroyed and never rebuilt because of those poverty rates and because it was so war-torn. Also in 1895, there was a large earthquake that hit a major city in Slovenia that destroyed even more buildings and roads that never got rebuilt. The government system at that time was a socialist republic, and during that time, everyone was taxed very highly, with there being very few jobs, and that created many conflicts between many different cities. Now let me tell you about some traditions and customs that stand out to me in my family's culture. First, I'm going to talk about the food, and these facts are from everyculture.com and another YouTube video about some traditional dishes that I learned about. Now, food is very prominent in the Slovenian culture, like many other cultures that I know of. This food is reflective of Mediterranean, Alpine, and Eastern European cultures. Meals are very, very important to Sloven life as well, like enjoying a snack or a glass of wine at a local restaurant with friends. And that was a typical social activity for most people around. Another custom or tradition that I thought was really important to know was the primogeniture. This was the inheritance by the oldest son, which typically dealt with land or property. And this historically determined land distribution in Slovenia. Land and property were also kept intact and passed down through families over generation as a tradition that helped limit land fragmentation as well. So how does all this background and info about my family's culture relate to me and my life? Well, the story I'm about to tell you is a story that my mom told me a few years ago that is very important, and I'll talk about the sacrifices that my great-grandparents made. So in 1920, my great-grandpa left his wife in Slovenia with a newborn child that they had just had. He left to start a new life in America a year before my great-grandma could go over there. They decided to leave because it was almost impossible to live with a child in Slovenia at this time because of the impoverished rates. My grandma had to wait a year before she could come to America, leaving her whole life behind her and all she had never known. She had to ride on a dirty sea vessel with her baby with no male figure to protect her, which could be very dangerous at this time in history. The voyage took around 30 days, and she had gotten seasick more than most of those 30 days. And the food that they got was pretty much spaghetti and water for 3 times a day for every meal. The conditions were so bad because she could only afford the cheap tickets for the bottom of the boat as well, where the waves were felt the strongest. So that is why she got more seasick than maybe other passengers on the boat. One of the biggest sacrifices that sticks out to me was that she didn't only leave her house and all of her possessions behind, but she had left the people she had loved the most and the people that had made her the woman she was for the rest of her life. And when she left, she would never know that she would see them again, which was probably the hardest thing for her. Those same people have worked very hard to give me the life that I am living today as well. My great-grandpa worked in a factory every day and trapped for extra money and food for the family when he wasn't working at the factory. He had done this for 14 years straight, and while he was trapping in the winter, he had fell through some thin ice which led to him drowning, and he was never seen again. And this made my great-grandma's life 100% harder now that she had 2 kids at the time. So my great-grandma had to pick up jobs cleaning houses, and that barely kept food on the table. And at some points during the winter, she would have to borrow money from her neighbor to buy coal to heat her house when it got super cold outside. Both of her kids ended up having to drop out of school and work in factories as well, just to pay bills and to put food on the table. So I'm very thankful for everything my great-grandparents have done for my whole family. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And they came over not knowing what to expect, except for that they wanted to live a great life and live the American dream. And because of that, I'm living that dream. Some cool artifacts that I have is that, so my mom had told me that story, and this picture is a picture of my mom and my great-grandma that had come over. So I thought that was kind of cool to share. And I also have this 100-year-old painting of where my great-grandparents got married. And they got married on that old church on the middle of the island, which I thought was really cool to show, because they had brought this over from the old country Slovenia when they had left as well. Thanks.